Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 186 of Kouryer podcast, and we're about only roughly 13, 14 episodes away from the big milestone of 200. And well, we're right now currently at episode 186, as I mentioned, and our today's guest is Mr. Harry Alisavakis. He's a video game developer and technical VFX artist from Athenes, Greece. And of course, before we jump into the signature questions and just the whole interview in general, I just want to quickly mention that in the for contact section of the captions down below, you can find the idea to his Instagram, the link to his art session if you want to see more in-depth stuff, the link to his Twitter because he's way more active on Twitter, and usually, as you know, the development and developer communities in tech especially are more active on Twitter. Instagram is for pretty soldier concept talks and pretty girl pictures, not that those bad, but and also the link to his YouTube channel, and of course is something that we're going to mention and talk about in detail as well, a link to his ATLV articles as well. So if you're gonna go check it out, if you're into some breakdowns of his, there's he did one on shaders in cell shading, and there was a Dragon Ball VFX in Unity. There's so many stuff there. But yeah, there's some that's pretty much all, and also the link to his website as well, which I just realized I didn't put in the caption, but I will do right now. So yeah, that's about it. So let's jump into the first signature question of the podcast. All right, so give us a little introduction on how we got into the world of visual arts and design and art and all that stuff. Basically, tell us the story of the moment that made you realize that, oh, I want to get into this stuff.
Yeah. So well, first off, hey everybody, and thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast. Yeah. So well. First off, my background is actually in computer science. I went to uni to get a degree in informatics and telecommunications, and got into programming and all that because I wanted to get into game development. But I thought, the most common route to that is usually through computer science and programming. But even before that, I actually was into 3D and modeling in general, and tried to learn a bit of that stuff on my own. And after I started learning more about Unity and teaching myself more about game development, I figured that there is a thing that actually combined the two, and it's mostly around shaders. And basically I just started learning about those. And back then there weren't a lot of resources. So as I was starting learning about them, I also kind of documented my findings and also shared whatever I learned to make new tutorials and blog posts for people starting out like me to have something to begin with. And then after that, I just started experimenting with whatever effects I could think of, and just sharing my process and my approach on Twitter mostly. And after a while, I also got into VFX. That actually came quite a while after I got into shaders and game dev. And the tech art part actually helped a lot with VFX, but I realized that was an also really fun part and really creative, and all my shader knowledge also helped a lot. And pretty much then I never stopped posting and experimenting and sharing stuff, like the recent ramen bowl that apparently people like.
All right, and of course, as you mentioned as well, the areas you're working on, and also in the introduction, I mentioned that you're working, of course, in tech art and VFX and stuff. And I was just wondering, do you remember what the first piece of VFX effect you made, and with what software did you made it?
Well, if we're talking strictly game VFX, which again, I was already pretty familiar with Unity and all that. I think the first actual good one, or at least the actual something that I could call a VFX, a visual effect. It was I think a tornado, like a stylized tornado, which was I think inspired a bit by I think they go by Spyro on some forums. And I actually used some custom shaders for that, but I wasn't very familiar or very confident in Unity's particle system. So I actually kind of rolled my own solutions with custom C# animations, and yeah, it was a mess, especially in terms of the setup. But after I actually got more familiar with like the particle system and how actually powerful it was, I started doing things the right way.
All right, and could you also explain to us, for the uninitiated? I mean, basically, anyone who's listening to this episode and podcast, they probably are not uninitiated, and they know, what tech art is, what VFX is, and stuff like that, and they're here to learn more from you. But
Yeah.
to the possible minority that are listening and just interested in, what you're doing, could you explain to them, what is exactly, specifically, what area you're trying to specialize in?
Yeah, so I call myself a technical artist, even though that's a pretty broad term. I can mostly do technical art and also some VFX, but it's mostly technical art. So, what is technical art? In essence, it's a very broad field, which if you ask a lot of different technical artists, they will all tell you a different thing, that they're doing like a bunch of different stuff. But the core goal of it is to basically make the art pipeline in a production much easier and much uh, efficient, essentially. So technical artists sit right between the art and the code, and they help artists and programmers basically bring all the different stuff together in a sufficient way, and just also while keeping an eye out for performance and making the game run well. So usually that's in form of tools. Like I personally do quite a bit of tool making, especially in Unity. So you can imagine, like, if you want to scatter grass along a surface, or you know uh, just have an easy way to assign materials, stuff like that. Basically, specific things that artists use on a project that make their lives easier, essentially. Another way to also help is obviously with shaders. So in case people don't know, shaders are just small programs, small coded programs that determine how a surface will be rendered. So everything you see in a game, like how glossy a material is, or how how the texture is applied on the material, all that stuff is determined by a little piece of code which is called a shader. I personally like to hand code my shaders, and now there are new tools about, where you use nodes and connect them, and some people prefer it. I don't, but I have to work with that with some Unity versions. And yeah, that's basically something that I do a lot, and something that I like to do. Basically, just making different and creative uses of like tools and shaders, just to make pretty visual results, and also help out artists to achieve their own vision.
All right. And of course, I hope everyone who listened could get a grasp and understanding of, what we're dealing with right now for the people who, are new to this field. And I also quickly want to mention that in his website, which I actually did now put the website link in the captions for the people who are watching right now. You're seeing it, no worries at all. You can see that there's there's a couple of sections on the top side of the website. There's one which is called Technical Art, and the last issue was, if I'm correct, came out April 1st of 2022, which was a issue 122. As he mentioned, it's basically his journey through video game development. And also another thing, a series of articles he's doing, which is called Shader Quest. So yeah, those are something really interesting stuff. If you're interested into that sort of fields, if you want to go check it out, you can check it out there as well. And all right. There's a couple of things I want to, mention. Recently, of course, one of the ways I usually find guests for the podcast is I'm pretty much on Twitter and Instagram. I always, keep a lookout on, I follow, for example, different pages that, post tutorials or stuff like that. And I think you can already tell where I'm going with this. And recently, one of your things that really blew up was, I think, the shader you made for that, noodle scene, food scene and stuff like that, which, blew everyone's mind. And because it actually yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna let you tell the whole story, all right? Because I think that kind of expose it. So the mic is yours.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I actually made that as part of a challenge. So I also run a Discord community of technical artists. I mean, it's mostly focused around technical art and VFX, but it's also open to like all different game development disciplines. It's called Technically Speaking, just in the whole like brand of technically art and all that stuff. Where like every 2 or 3 weeks we have like a little technical art challenge where we vote and suggest themes and pick one. So like the latest challenge, which is actually still running, was just food. And another awesome technical artist, Cyan, posted like some really nice eggs and bacon, and that which actually made me think of the scene from Howl's Moving Castle, where I don't know if you've seen it, but yeah, it has some
Yeah,
really
yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, exactly. You know the scene. So I was actually pretty excited to try something like that. Though obviously I didn't want to also make bacon and eggs. So yeah, I just went through looking really cool looking ramen bowls from anime, which are always looking super pretty and super like appetizing, and found a bunch of references, and I just wanted to try my hand at that. And yeah, apparently people liked it. It's also funny because the original tweet didn't get as much attention because apparently it did look quite a lot like anime, especially when you're scrolling fast through Twitter. Maybe if you don't take a second look and find all the flaws, which I know where they are, but it's harder for other people. Yeah, maybe you can't easily understand that it's actually 3D and actually in Unity, so it's real time, so it could be in a game, for example. So yeah, after that I posted another tweet where I actually raised the quad I used for the soup, for the broth, and yeah, it showed how the intersection with the rest of the elements worked. And yeah, apparently that was what people enjoyed the most and got the most attention, because I guess people understood that it wasn't actually 2D or hand drawn or whatever.
All right, interesting. And I actually kind of want to ask you something, because you mentioned that because the post you like initially when you posted that thing on Twitter, people didn't get that. They thought it was just a scene from anime. They were like, yeah, another anime scene, casual anime scene, some maybe 3D and just passed. But I want to ask you something. This kind of made me remember an issue I was kind of like thinking about. You see, I mean, of course, I don't know if you kind of remember, but or heard from other artists, like let's say 20 years ago, right? No, not 20 years ago. Yeah, around 20 years ago, right? When people in Photoshop, the concept artists and artists started to use, like, for example, color picking for their pieces, a lot of artists said, this is cheating, this is wrong, you're not a good artist, you're faking art, you're not a real artist, you don't know anything, you're color picking, blah, blah, blah. Then photo bashing came, and same thing. Then people started using Blender, like 3D stuff, like not just Blender, by the way, just any 3D stuff, to work in the pipeline to get a result for concept art. And because apparently it's still a lot of people, not just the artists, but a lot of people don't know the difference between illustration and concept art. Concept art is just documentation to get an idea visualized, so the next person in the pipeline could just move it and just produce it. Whether the game is like 2D or 3D or whatever. And then there's AI now. There's this whole issue about this. You're using AI reference. That's so disgusting. But here's the thing I was thinking. In your opinion, if someone makes something in 3D, first here's the thing. They have an artistic idea, right? It all starts with an artistic idea in the beginning, all right? I think we all can agree on that. Then they make a scene or make an object or something. Or let's say they, for example, make a robotic hand holding a rose under a light somewhere, right? They make that in Blender, and they don't like how it looks, so they just put it in Photoshop, the render, and started like giving it the paint early fill with the brush strokes, and they post that. Does that consider like cheating in your opinion, or is it completely fine?
Well, I mean, in my honest opinion, because I'm not like a very traditional artist, it's not like I actually draw or make actual 3D artwork in that sense. But in my honest opinion, I think it's fine. I don't think there's such a thing as cheating in the way that, some people say in art. Obviously, I'm not saying, trace a picture and, change the colors or anything like that. But we have a lot of tools right now, and even the AI tools, as long as you can add your own creative agency over them, and maybe use the AI generated picture for photo busing. That's all right, because it's still like your vision and still like your creativity. I don't think that there's a lot of traditionalists that think that art needs to have a bit of pain behind it, like you need to draw everything on from scratch, or not even use like a digital medium whatsoever, just freehand everything. And I don't think we're way past that. We have a lot of tools right now, and I don't think that it's bad to use them. I mean, if they get if they help you get to what your goal is faster, then why not? Again, as long as you're not actually using anybody else's art, or if you just hit enter on Mid Journey or any other AI tool and you say I made this. Obviously, there's a bit of common sense to this, but no, I believe that you can use any tool to make your art better looking, more accurate, more beautiful, or whatever. Then just go for it.
That is honestly a really interesting subject. And by the way, to anyone who's listening, please leave your opinions as well down in the comments below, whether on Instagram or Castbox or anything. I really wanted to start a discussion here about this issue. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this? And I mean, just to give my own 2 cents on this issue is, I mean, it depends. If you're doing it for concept art and just you want to get something, as I said, vision more forward, cheat as you want. That's my thing. It's my personal opinion. Like, as long as you get the job done well, cheers, And
sorry to interrupt, but I mean, especially for concept art, where you just need to convey a specific feel, or like the atmosphere, or like a specific design. Then just drop the Mona Lisa upside down. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you just get your point across, then yeah.
But as I was saying, but here's the thing. There's a beauty in when you take a subject and you draw and you do the line art, you do the coloring and rendering all by yourself without 3D stuff. That is a different subject, by the way. It's not related to concept art. In my opinion, for example, if you have the vision and you bring the vision fast to 3D, but still you want to actually do it by your hand, if you use that as a reference, that is perfectly fine in terms of personal work. But if you don't care at all and you want a decoration, you don't necessarily want to express anything, just with concept art. That's my 2 cents. Because here's the thing: I have a lot of things in my head that I want to visualize, which I can quickly do a quick 3D sketch and get it up and running. But because I know I like the fundamentals in coloring and all art, like line work and artwork and all that, it's not that fulfilling for me. I need to somehow. I mean, this is of course I'm talking about personal work, for yourself, not all artwork. This is just my personal opinion, and I'm sure there might be people who disagree with me or agree with me when it comes to personal work. But that's just my 2 cents. But all in all, I think these are the type of discussions that we all should just be objectively and just have with an open mind to see where we are, and not generalize stuff together to just argue with each other. It's good to actually discuss this stuff open-mindedly, But of course, most times Twitter is not the most open-minded space for that stuff. But all right. So I think you all are here for a very good and justifiable reason, which is you all had wonderful questions, and we're going to get into them right now. All right. So here's the thing. Theo Radzos asks, what's your proudest moment?
Yeah. Well, the proudest moment. Well, certainly I'm very proud of the work that I'm doing currently with Jumpship. I'm currently working, by the way, as a technical artist at a UK studio called Jumpship on Somerville. I'm just seeing it all come together. I think is one of my proudest moments, because I know that that I contributed a lot to it, and I helped the artists bring out the vision out there, which is awesome. Um, I can't think of anything else at this point, but I think that probably is, because I do like making things and like experimenting with stuff and sharing like my little gifs and videos and all that. They are great, but I would love to also make a complete game, and even if I can't do that on my own, just contributing to like such a nice project is like a very big deal for me.
All right, and actually, from your setup page, people had like ask a lot of questions, and now we're going to get into them. From my side, there was only one question which I asked, and okay, so the first person asked, "How do you create such shaders?" And I love, for the way he wrote it, sounds like he's talking about like magical spells, which is kind of funny to me, but interesting, yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if the question refers to the very technical and literal aspect of those, or just like how I go about creating them in like a creative process. Well, in a literal sense, I use like the built-in version of Unity, and I just hand code them, with either surface shaders or just hand coded shaders. I don't enjoy all the node based tools all that much. In a more creative essence, I guess it's a lot of like noticing what makes things look the way they look. So I do like stylized art much more. I don't usually strive for photorealism, and so a lot, if not all of my none of my shaders are actually physically correct. I don't really go with all the heavy math. I'm not good at it either. So I'm just trying to find, if I see a nice stylized highlight on a picture or a screenshot of an animated series or whatever, I'm just trying to think, how could I get my object looking like this without actually, worrying about basic physics and how light works and all that stuff. So, like, especially for the stylized, all the stylized things that I make, like the ramen again, first I'm trying to, get some specific effects looking the way that I want them to look. And then I also try to basically destroy everything that makes it look 3D, or just, kill all photorealism, just so that I can get all the stylized elements up front.
Okay, and here's an interesting question. Where can we learn people like shaders? Basically what they're asking is, how can we learn, making shaders in the same style of, Ghibli Studio? But there's also, this channel on YouTube. I don't know if you know it. Sala has a station. He also, I think, made some, courses on that, stuff like that. But yeah, that aside, how, in your opinion, have you tried experimenting with those type of styles?
Sure, with what?
With Ghibli style. Our style.
Yeah. I actually followed some tutorials, I think, from it's another YouTube channel. I think it's called Anton Dedene.
Don't know him.
Yeah, no, it's a really great channel. I'm trying to find it right now, but I cannot find it right now. But yeah, I think it's something Dedene. It's the surname, but I can't remember the first name. They make awesome Blender shader tutorials for very like Ghibli style look. And yeah, I try to integrate them a lot in Unity. and some of my stylized water shaders are actually based on his. But yeah, in general, I can't. There's also another one, but I can't remember. Yeah, there are mostly Blender tutorials for these, but yeah, it's mostly I mostly come up with some techniques myself, or some are pretty common, but I just adjust the results to fit my liking. Like for example, my self-shaded shader. Like self-shading is a pretty common technique. You can find out about it anywhere. And then I just build on top, or just change some elements to my liking, just so that I can get a closer look to what I want.
But
Christoph did it. I remembered.
Oh, Crystal didn't it?
Yeah, Christoph.
Christoph. Oh, sorry. Christoph didn't it? Let me see. Oh, really interesting. Anime blood splatter. Oh, his stuff is really good.
Yeah.
I'll link his channel in the captions as well, for anyone who's interested as well. Oh, really interesting. And I was going to ask you something. Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, bad memory, as I mentioned.
Right.
Do you know anything about the software called Sculptron?
Which one?
Sculptron. I don't know if it's like an add-on, but a software. But there has been some amazing cell shading stuff on it that just blows my mind. I don't know if you've heard about it.
This is the first time I'm hearing about it.
It's like there's an artist.
Is it?
Wait, I have the links to the artist, actually. I'll send to you later. But he makes like the most insane cell shading pieces of mechs, or scenes, or for example airplane dogfight scenes or environment stuff. Like the cell shading is just out of this world on this program. It's just and I was kind of surprised that I even heard about it, because is it a new software? It must be a new software. There's no ways.
Maybe.
Wait.
I think it released something like last year.
Oh.
But yeah, it seems like it's mostly, around sculpting and animation and all that. And unfortunately, I'm not too familiar with like the whole art pipeline. Like I can model some basic, props, but I don't sculpt or do retopology or anything like that, or texturing.
No, but even with the texturing, oh yeah, you can't answer my question yet. So you're in the tech art, yeah. But still, I think the people are still doing some really cool stuff on this, well, even tech art. Like there's so many tech art stuff you can do in 3D. Like it's kind of like it's a really fun age to be alive in, honestly.
Yeah.
And all right, so let's go to the next question, which is, how do you make 3D look so 2D?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it's a lot. It comes a lot from trying to basically. It's not about making it look 2D, but just making it look less 3D. So, like for example, for the latest thing with the ramen, one thing that helped a lot was that I had like a very small field of view, so the camera was almost orthographic. So it was quite far away, but it had like a smaller field of view, because the perspective is what gives away that it's 3D. There's also other techniques that I add on top, like edge detection. So you can have some outlines that feel as if somebody drew them. Obviously, lighting is a big part of it. Like you can't have any gradient really with your lighting. It's all just cell shading. Like you have like one or maybe two steps for your light. And then just a whole bunch of post-processing to hide all your flaws. So you add like some grain on top to basically hide that it's all like one solid color. Lots of bloom, so that it all looks glowy, and just basically trying to see, okay, this looks too 3D. What can I do to make it look less 3D?
All right, and the next question is, will you make a video of making those VFX, but before you answer that, I just want to quickly mention something as I did earlier in the mention. In the captions, you can find the link to his YouTube channel, and in his YouTube channel, you can see a playlist of his game dev streams, his shader dev streams, and last but not least, his VFX streams, which are like 3-4 hours, like each of them, like full process of making his VFX stuff. He made even Valorant is part of the stuff. Referring to that, I'm into that. That's why I noticed that. And yeah, he has a pretty active YouTube channel. So yeah, but aside from all the things you're doing on YouTube right now, is there any other future plans on making VFX tutorials as well?
Yeah, so unfortunately, all the videos on my YouTube are basically all just stream recordings from tweets. Where I stream from time to time. It's been a while since I last streamed, but I'm trying to, do that every now and then. But proper videos, I'm not sure. I would love to. I'd actually really want to, get back to being active in terms of making tutorials and more in-depth videos and more, a better medium basically for tutorials, either for VFX or modeling, but for technical artists or for shaders. But right now there's no time. I'd love to do that at some point, but right now it's tough.
Yeah, and yeah, it's kind of like the thing. It's kind of like a paradox of choice because of the age we live in. We have so many opportunities to do a lot of stuff that we like, but at the same time, we live in pretty crazy times, and you get stressed. You also want to keep your main stuff rolling, main projects, and if you don't properly try to recover from burnout or depression of that sort of stuff, it's gonna go bad, honestly. And so yeah, everything it's best for each project to give it its own special time. I mean, for me, podcasting is not even considered a project because by project I mean it doesn't I don't take it doesn't take me an effort. That's what I'm trying to say. It's easy for me. Like the editing is fast for me. I can basically become natural at it at this point, and it doesn't take energy from me. That's the thing. I enjoy it. That's what I'm trying to say. That's why I keep still doing it. But still, I personally I'm still in the process of recovery of, from a lot of burnouts, since past 2 weeks now. And I try not to, because there's always this guilt on the back of your head that you're just being lazy, go work. But I know that I actually need to recover from a lot of burnout I had. But yeah, for anyone who's listening, definitely if you can, please take care of your mental health and your physical health as well. Because when you sit down behind the system for sometimes all day, I'm not just going to say 8 hours or 12 hours, because some days you might sit behind the computer for 16 hours. So that's what I'm saying, all day. That's what I'm doing, which is really unhealthy. And take care of your mental health, emotional health, physical health. This three, just when you're good at those, when you're balanced at those areas, your productivity is going through the roof compared to where you were. So yeah, I always any opportunity I get to say this type of stuff, I always say, because it's super important as reminders. And okay, so next question is, what inspired you to become a 3D artist? You're a tech artist, but still 3D artist.
Yeah, well, what inspired me? Well, I mean, I always, wanted to, work on games. There were games that inspired me, to get into game development since high school, pretty much. But yeah, especially for tech art, I'm not sure what inspired me precisely, but to be honest, while I do have a programming background, I'm not terribly good at code. I do enjoy writing it, and I do enjoy, making stuff and programming. But I'm not one of these really crazy good programmers. So, when I figured out that there's also a way to, code, but also do creative and visual stuff, which I always liked, I just leaned more towards that. So yeah, I think that basically figuring out that there's a way to combine, coding with art. So yeah.
All right. And what is the best way or place to learn shaders for Blender? Interesting question.
Yeah. Well, for Blender specifically, I'm not sure. I mean, I know that there's Erin Dale has awesome Blender videos. They're mostly about geometry nodes, as far as I know, but I think they also cover a lot about shaders. But yeah, to be fair, I don't know a lot about shaders in Blender, but the thing is, and the very good thing is that shader knowledge is very transferable. Like shaders are pretty much the same everywhere, and especially if you get into like coded shaders where you understand, what's happening, how you can take the direction of the light and the normal vector and then figure out how something is lit. Then you can easily just use that knowledge to any environment, and that includes Blender. So yeah, I can make some whatever shaders I might want. Maybe not too complex because I'm not too familiar, but I can make a lot of shaders in Blender as well. Even though I started playing shaders mostly with Unity. But if somebody is really interested in learning shaders, even if it's just with code, what I always suggest to people is starting with the Book of Shaders. It's a site. It's made by Patricia Gonzalez, which is like a very gentle introduction into how shaders work and how to think with shaders, without caring about like whatever environment you're in and whatever setup you might need and writing other code or whatever. It's just you just write shaders.
All right. And by the way, for that person who asked about shaders in Blender, I actually, my main software that I'm just learning as well as Blender, and a great YouTube channel for that actually put us a lot of like, has a lot of like materials and shaders, tutorials for Blender is Ducky 3D. I don't know if you know him, but
No?
Ducky 3D is an amazing channel for that. And yeah, I mean, there are other great, Blender YouTube channels, but specifically Ducky 3D is really good for materials and shaders. He has a lot of good tutorials. And the next question, which is, if I know already 3D modeling, how should I start learning VFX? So we have someone who knows 3D modeling, but they want to get into VFX.
Yeah. So, well, the 3D modeling knowledge is actually very useful. You can get a lot in your VFX if you come from a 3D modeling background. So what's really handy is to actually learn about any VFX systems that your engine of choice uses. So like if you use Unity, then it's the Shuriken particle system or the VFX graph in the URP and HDRP versions. Um, and yeah, it's obviously a matter of learning what you can do with that tool, because it can actually give you a lot of control and a lot of flexibility in terms of whatever you want to make, because VFX is obviously there's a big visual component to it, but it also has a lot of other disciplines to it, like color theory or like animation, timing. All that stuff is they come from experience, and they come from just trying stuff out and see what feels better. But coming from a 3D background will help a lot, because you can make your own custom meshes and play a lot with custom UVs. Like if you a big part of VFX is actually taking advantage of UVs in more creative ways than just texture mapping, because scrolling UVs around, you can get like an interesting trail texture just panning around and making it look like more traily and more wispy. Or yeah, if you unwrap a cylinder as a with a cylinder projection, then you can no, sorry, like a disk with a cylinder projection, you basically can get something like polar coordinates, and you can make textures swirl around while they're actually proper textures. So yeah, 3D modeling will help a lot with that, since somebody is already familiar with how to model basic meshes or even more complex meshes, and just combine it all with like whatever system their engine of choice uses, like particle systems and whatnot. But yeah, there's also like I think plenty of YouTube tutorial channels for Unity. Like there's it's called One MAFX. which has like some really awesome tutorials for also using Substance Designer and Houdini for meshes and textures. Uh, but yeah, there's plenty of resources out there.
All right. And well, there's only a couple of questions remaining. Let's go through them. Which the next question is, how do I start if I have never written code but want to learn to write shaders on my own?
Yeah, so that actually might be even easier, mostly because hand-coded shaders, shaders made with code actually use like HLSL, GLSL, or CG. There's like a handful of languages that you can use with hand-coded shaders. But the thing is that they're all very, very different from like conventional coding. Like because when I started with shaders, I only knew C Sharp, starting from Unity. And yeah, when I first opened like a shader lab shader in Unity, yeah, I was just very confused because everything looked weird. Like there were functions that I didn't know where they were getting called from, or it used like three different kinds of syntax that I've never seen before. It's weird. So I don't think that not knowing coding can be a very big obstacle, especially if you're not actually making coded shaders and you use any node-based system like Shader Graph or Amplify Shader Editor or Unreal Engine's Material Editor. Yeah, you don't need any code for that. It helps. It helps a lot to know what happens behind the scene and how you could achieve the same effect with code. But you don't really need a very strong coding background as long as you understand like very basic code principles. Each line gets executed after the other one, and add a semicolon at the end. I don't know, but like very basic coding principles, then you're pretty right to learn shaders.
And let's say for a beginner, like, for example, let's pick a software and a programming language for a beginner to start. Is Blender a Python or a good option? Or like, because I've heard on Unity, they do a lot of coding with C# as well. What is your suggestion for the same person who asked the question?
Sorry, can you repeat that
Yeah,
because I'm
sure,
not
sure,
sure I
sure.
got it.
He basically asked I'm not, why did I say he? I mean, they asked,
Yeah.
how they can, start, coding their own shaders. So, what suggestion you have in terms of like, programming language and, softwares, to start with that?
Yeah, I mean, for Seda specifically, I don't have any suggestion in particular. I mean, Unity, obviously, I think it's maybe easier and maybe more approachable to get started with. Though for Seder specifically, as I mentioned, I think the Book of Seder is a very good place to start because you don't need to, know anything about any environment. Like, because, okay, it's not a big deal, but like for Unity, okay, you might write a Seder, but you also need to apply that to a material and then put that material onto a 3D model and see what happens. But, if you just want this pure Seder knowledge, something like the Book of Seder, which has no rendering environment, like 3D, anything like that, is probably the best way to go. And it's also all coded, but it goes like very gently and very easily teaches you how to use code for shaders.
All right. So, how can I start learning what you do? Do you know where I can find tutorials to start learning this? Which I assume they mean tech art. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, so yeah, for tech art specifically, the answer is a bit complicated because, yeah, as I mentioned, every technical artist has, I guess they have like a different set of skills. Like some technical artists can work with rigging and with animation and IK, stuff like that, making tools for Maya or other 3D programs. They can know code or they can be more focused around art. it's a bit difficult because basically the skill set of every technical artist is whatever fits the project and the studio. It's not like, for 3D artists, you can assume that, most of 3D artists have more or less the same skill set in terms of, the type of things that they know, not like the level. So, there you would, know sculpting and texturing and topology and maybe some rigging, but, they're pretty consistent. But with technical artists, it's a bit tough because, it's basically just a matter of learning as much as you can about as many disciplines as you can and finding creative ways to combine them and just help out the rest of the team. So I start to learn how to, be a technical artist, I guess. It's basically just a matter of, trying to learn as much as you can. If somebody's more art inclined, then that's all right. But, it helps to know a bit of code and scripting, at least, to, make tools or combine, maybe VFX with triggering them through code, stuff that basically combines the two disciplines. But again, it very much depends on whatever, some projects or studios need. But more or less, it's just about, learning as much as you can. Just, trying out stuff, trying to make games, trying to make shaders, trying to make art, whatever you can, as much as you can. And then the rest is just putting that to good use.
All right. And really juicy question. I love that. What specs does your PC have?
Yeah, so I have like desktop PC. I'm using a Ryzen 9 5900X, I believe. So I went a bit overkill with the CPU. An RTX 3070, which I got when they were very, very expensive compared to the retail price, at least. But I made this computer 1 year ago, 1.5 years ago, when GPU prices were peaked. But I really needed it. So
thanks to the NFT communities that everything is skyrocketed.
Yeah, they ruin everything. Anyway, but I think that's the most important thing. Though I am pretty happy about my screen. I went from having two kind of small screens to a ridiculously wide one. I think it's the CRG9, which is really awesome for productivity and the field of view is amazing especially in first-person games. It really is annoying when I want to screen share anything because then everything gets squeezed, and a lot of applications and programs are actually made thinking about 16:9 aspect ratio. You'd be surprised how many games don't properly adjust an ultra wide screen. But I've been really enjoying it.
Wow. And I could imagine, honestly, people usually, think about, oh my God, I wish one day I can, have a good relationship and do this and, go on travels. And and you know what I'm like? I want a crazy, high-end spec PC, because the amount of just insane processors, that's what I really crave right now. And the amount of things here's the thing, the podcast, whenever I edit them, I have to put them into Adobe After Effects so I can, get it rendered and make the final product. And they usually take 3 to 4 hours because I'm on a really old, 7-year-old PC now. I've been, learning 3D on it, which is kind of crazy. Because of financial reasons, I can't upgrade it right now, but I can't listen. I even installed Substance Painter recently on it and I was so excited. But then, boom, big warning. You can't, at any moment on your laptop, it might crash. You need to, change some registry stuff on graphics of your laptop manually, which I searched on the internet and they said it might be risky. If you do that incorrectly, you might have to reinstall your OS. And I'm like, fuck that. And so yeah, I had to uninstall Substance Painter. But still, I mean, the great thing with Blender is free, it's lightweight, and even if with old laptops, you can still learn and do stuff with it. And there's no excuse, So that's why I'm not sad or anything. I just keep going with this, as long as I can. And so as you can see there I have valid reasons why would I have that fantasy of having like a huge high-end stuff, because I just imagine like if I hit render on After Effects like in a high-end PC, the render of a 2-hour video will be just ready in 10 minutes. And that's something that gets me excited. It's kind of like, I don't know, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been my fantasy to also get like high-end PC, because the one I had before, it was like it was Frankenstein out of different parts that I got. After I bought it, I just changed the GPU, then changed the motherboard to the CPU, and it was all like a mess. I mean, it did its job and it served me well, but yeah, I just needed an upgrade after some point.
Yeah, definitely. Because even renders, right now, whenever I do a render, I only let it be rendered by 5-6% on Blender. I mean, because I just want to get the clear definition of the thing. I don't need it to be just super highly definitely rendered with cycles. Because if I want to do that, each piece usually takes like roughly 16 to 22 hours. And yep, that's not possible for my case. But yeah, I was once crazy enough, and with one of my, relatively amateur simple scenes, which at the time, when I was, doing it, I learned a lot through, making it. But it took like 18 hours to render, because there were so many things I didn't know back then. I should have just adjusted optimized the, render settings and stuff like that. But still, my in my naivete, I actually, let it render, and my probably laptop wasn't so happy about it, but here we are. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad you actually have a good spec PC right now, man.
Thanks. I wish you get your high-end spec PC as well soon.
Thanks so much. All right, so last question, which is, any tutorial out there to lead to this manga style, or is it something you discovered yourself? And we kind of went over it, like, in some of the previous sessions, but still, just to answer his question. Their question. Why do I keep saying this? Sorry, I don't need to.
I can't think of specific tutorials. I did a small breakdown of that specific ramen bowl thing as to how it was, put together. And the fun fact, I actually have served most of the shaders that I used. I already have a tutorial about them online on my website. They might be slightly modified, but the core is there, like free with the code and whatever, because I want people to actually, use those. Not a specific tutorial I followed or anything I can think of. Maybe at some point I might do some more detailed write-up again, if there's the time. But I definitely will do more tests like that, and I will try more anime-like scenes and whatnot. So yeah, I'm excited to try that out, and then maybe share whatever I make, and however I made it, just share whatever I can.
And the crazy thing about that is like it's everywhere, and it's kind of crazy that the world is going right now, and I think it's a good thing as well that we're inching towards this idea of like, when it comes to media and entertainment and all that stuff, we're getting towards the era of like, stylized art styles. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Because usually the most cliche and niche art styles have been done, and to breathe out some freshness into the product, you need, of course, people who are like, good at making those art styles, pop out really well. And I think one of the reasons that it was so well received was that. And of course, like even like an hour before I got in the call, I was just browsing my LinkedIn and checking my notifications, and it was on LinkedIn, it was on our session articles, it was on Twitter. Congratulations, by the way, great stuff there, man. And that's about it. So in his website, I link, of course, is in the captions. And by the way, I always, say this, as just like a quick little fun thing, for every audience and yourself. But just let me quickly bring this out. All right, this I wanted to bring out. Today is 14th of July, the day we're recording this episode. And if you're watching this episode, which is episode 186, you're probably watching it on August 29th. So, yeah, 15, 16... 35, 45 days later. Wow. So yeah, from the past, we say hi. All right. So jump into the next question, which is, who are some of your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most? By the way, not just artists and designers, like, tech artists, the people in your field as well. You can mention them as well.
Oh, yeah, good question. Well, I'm a really big fan of a lot of artists I see and follow actively on Twitter. Like there's Nick Carver, who's like an art director and has worked on some really beautiful projects. Now there's so many that I don't think I can name them all or even recall them. But yeah, no, there's too many. I'm trying to see, maybe scroll through my bookmarks and see if I stored anything. But yeah, others like Late As Usual. That's their handle. They do amazing stuff in Blender, like great experiments. There's obviously like Mako, as they brand themselves. They're an illustrator. They've done a lot of work for like Tunic for the game. And I think, yeah, their style is it's maybe like the best thing that I would want to manage in 3D, like making this look in 3D. That could be like probably the end goal of my 2D style experiments. Yeah, no, there's plenty. Like that's the good thing about Twitter. Like every day I scroll and I see great work from great artists or like amazing tech from like really awesome tech artists. Like for example, there's Oscar, who's the creator of Townscaper. Like their work in tech art is like amazing and revolutionary. Really,
Townscaper was such a fun game. I have it on my Steam as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's Cyanilux that I mentioned, who's like a really gifted technical artist. Yeah, no, just so many.
All right. Actually, this is one of the questions that people usually get stunned by, because they're like, oh my God, there's so many. Artists usually, as they're super visual people. They're not good with names. And as you kind of observed today, even before recording, I don't have a good memory in general recently. So they're just good with, visual cues, And yeah, this is one of their people's like, least favorite. Actually, that's not the right thing to say. Least favorite question, but it's one of the difficult questions, and you pass it pretty well. And a smart way to usually answer this is just say, go look at my list of following people. That's it. Because I actually had that as an answer once.
Yeah, well, no, that's a big list.
Yeah, definitely. And all right. What are you working on right now that you can tell us about? What kind of project is it? I mean, of course, there's always a possibility of NDAs being involved. If that's the case, we can skip or jump right past this question. But if that's not the case, what are you doing right now?
Well, yeah, besides the work I do at Somerville with Jumpship, I'm not really doing a lot with personal projects. I'm still doing like little experiments like that. There's plenty of games that I would want to make and maybe have started, but never got the courage to continue working on them. Ideally, I think, tomorrow there's the GMTK Game Jam, which I would love to participate and maybe try and make something there. And if it ends up good, maybe think about making it into like a full game. I don't know. Game development is hard. I'd love to make something of my own, and I've tried. But yeah, no, it's been a while since I worked on something on my own. Oh, something I do work actively on and I'm close to finishing is a little tool for grass rendering and scattering in Unity. I call it Greenery. It's not just for grass. I mean, you can pretty much use it for any mess and whatnot, but I mostly would like to use it for grassy fields and flowers and rocks and all that stuff. I've shared a lot about it on Twitter, and I'm close to getting into a point where other people may use it. Again, as I mentioned, I'm not very great at code, so I don't have all the confidence in the world to just share a tool out there. But it's something that Unity desperately needs. Like right now, there's no good built-in tools for Unity to have like a nice grassy field. So I wanted to fill that gap, and ideally, I will probably release Greenery for free. Either like a base version of it just for people to use it and expand upon it, and then maybe like more feature complete with more shaders and examples in the asset store. I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually, I think, the smartest way to go with, because even Docu3D, as I mentioned him earlier, he also has a huge add-on library on Blender for materials, and I think around 20, 35 to 40 of the materials are for free, and you can get them. But and by the way, those even free materials are super good, but if you want to look more like materials, you need to actually pay to get the subscription. And the thing is, when you subscribe, I think he keeps updating the library, so you can get, if you, for example, and that's a crazy thing. So I think you pay, I don't know, like $35-$40 or something, but it sounds kind of too good to be true. But I think it was it was the case. And so I mean, I think honestly that's a good idea. Like you can get a pack of like some branches or bushes and grass, and of course people want to. Because that's a really smart idea. Because for one of my pieces, I tried to like model specifically leaves of a certain type of wine, vine plants, ivy vine, I think that was the name. And I couldn't find any free models on a Sketchfab or anything, I just had to do it myself. So I kind of scrapped it because it was taking too much time, because I wanted to become really good, and I wanted to rig the plants so it actually react to the wind and movement and stuff like that. But I was like, I just use a free, and I just use completely another different asset. But that actually really must be really good, honestly.
The cool thing about the tool is that it also tries to be pretty efficient as to how it renders things. Like there's frostum culling, so you don't see, it doesn't render whatever it sells out of the camera. And I want to make it so that it's easily expandable, so people can add their own models, and they can even add like their own methods of scattering. Like if they have a specific way that they would want to place plants and rocks, they can easily expand on the existing tool. I think it's basically what I would want to have when I'm making all these little scenes that I'm making. So I made it mostly for me, because I wanted like that one final solution for this kind of stuff. But I also really want to give back to the community and, just release that for as many people, that want to use that.
All right. And see, memory problems, as I said. I was going to say, I just remembered. Please do let me know when you kind of release the alpha version or beta version of anything. I will share it on my social medias links as well, so if anyone who's interested. Basically, I tell this to any guest, if they have any upcoming project, I will share the release versions to my audience as well. So please do let me know. And
for sure.
Now, here's kind of like an interesting question. Let's take a break from all this technical stuff. We're kind of tired of that. So many questions. I hope everyone, enjoyed them. I did enjoy them, But here's the question. What area beside the area you're working on right now, which is, of course, tech art and all of that, would you be interested to explore and learn in the future? It could be anything. Basically, what other hobbies and ambitions you have aside from what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so I would like to for sure expand like my skill set in both directions. So I would really want to learn more in-depth technical stuff about graphics, like make my own graphics engine, or learn more about basically how graphics work under the hood. Make a rasterizer, I don't know, that kind of stuff. But also I would really want to learn more about how to draw and how to model better. Maybe one thing I would really love to learn would be hand-drawn animation for VFX. Like all the hand-drawn VFX that I see just make me drool. Like they're so amazing. So that's maybe something I really like to focus on in the future. But when it comes to like specific discipline, maybe I could enjoy, art directing in the future, or basically just managing something on my own while still doing my own, my own thing. But basically having more creative control over a project, and especially in terms of the art and the aesthetics, that would probably be like the end goal for me.
All right. And well, we've reached the final section and question of the podcast, which is called Final Words. All right, let me explain what that means. Basically, imagine in, let's say, a limited amount of time, a few minutes, you had the opportunity to say anything that you want from a human, from Harry Alisavakis, to anyone else who might be listening to this episode of podcast in the future. It could be at any point of time in future, by the way. It could be a month, week, 10 years, a century if the world hasn't got destroyed. Hopefully not. But in that case, it's kind of like a time capsule. Actually, I should rename it to time capsule, because the last question of the podcast because the last question of the podcast is I usually want it to be a special thing. And since till episode 74 or 5, it was like, a timeline question, which they give a rundown of timeline of, how anyone who's listening can have a quick rundown of their journey, basically, like how they can follow it as well, so they can reach where they are. But then I changed it to this, what I'm asking you right now. And when I did that for a long time, I forgot to change from timeline to quick tips, and it was like timeline for 20 more episodes. But then I changed it to quick tips. Now, this is kind of weird things about my podcast. It's on the graphics it was quick tips till episode 150, but then 150 from forward, there's no titles and it's just text, which is awesome, minimal. But I want to change that official name of it, which is time capsule. All right, that was an unnecessary long rant. We're listening to you now.
Yeah. Well, I think the best thing that I could say would be, just keep being creative, keep exploring, keep trying stuff out. And, community is probably the best thing that is out there. Like, okay, I've gotten pretty far in my career, but honestly, the best thing I've done is fostering like a really great community on Discord and having helpful people just, be nice and help each other. So in terms of the industry and whatnot, I guess just keep being creative, keep trying stuff out, keep sharing whatever you find, keep offering back to the community, because that's cool. But most of all, just be kind, because it's not only just a small industry, but even not just for that, it just pays to be kind, or just it's a good thing to keep in mind.
Pretty underrated answer, to be honest. Yes, true. Everyone like everyone watches interviews of how to become better at this, better than, but no one takes a step back and sees what's the real thing, what's the main thing that's important. Just being a human first, and other things next. Pretty good answer. And thanks so much for coming by. It was a real pleasure. And
thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure, man. And thank you to anyone who tuned in and listened to this episode as well. I hope you enjoyed this and learned, because it was one of those, educational packed episodes, to be honest. And I think this is actually will be, I hopefully this episode will end up being a good resource for a lot of upcoming, tech artists, VFX artists and stuff like that. And yes, if there's any comments and suggestions, as always, leave them down in the comments below, and nothing gets left unread, or even you can send it to me on a personal message on DM me on Instagram. I'll always, check. I'm most active on Instagram. And that's about it. Take care, everyone. Till next episode, stay safe. Bye.
Bye.